Before we get into the video, real quick, I just want to say that I recorded this video at like 1 a.m. or like midnight or something. So if I sound really tired, it's because I was been recording this. And also, second thing, Friday. I think it's like 5 p.m. EST or 4. No, I think I'm going to do 5 p.m. EST. I'm preparing episode 10 on Friday, so make sure to tune up for that because there's going to be a pretty big event taking place, which might change things in the series. But yeah, without further ado, let's get on to episode number 9. I hope you enjoy. Today we're going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode number 9? No, 8? 9? I think it's 9 actually. I think I just recorded episode 8. Well, I didn't just record episode 8. I recorded it like 5 hours ago. So that's not really just at all, but same day. But yeah, in the last episode, what did we see? We saw the Second Great Italian War, or the Second Italian War, where we saw that Sicily and Florence have come out as the dominant powers. If we look at the power rankings, we can see that Venice has dropped down to 5, with Florence being 3rd and Sicily jumping up all the way to number 4. And then I guess we also saw just more countries pop up. We saw some pretty big changes in the ethnic layer. A lot more land was discovered. And we also saw all the way over here that this brand new, I guess, kind of Kurdish empire has, beginning to form. And that's actually where we're going to be starting off this episode, because this Kurdish empire is going to be going on a bit of a rampage. Now, they are still under the same king they were, like, first made. Like, they've conquered all this land in about 10 years. I know I've said it's the year 100 for, like, 3 years, but maybe, like, we're nearing the year 150, perhaps. I don't know, timing is always going to be weird. I'll just say we're around the year 150. This country was created in the year 130. So, that's a bit of time scale. But this guy wants to, go ahead and finish uniting all the Kurds. So we quickly see that this guy will go ahead and launch invasions into these regions, conquering the local tribes. And yes, this isn't an invasion color for now. And we also see that they'll send an invasion over here, conquering this region and pushing out pretty far. However, we then see that over here, a bunch of these Turkic tribes will actually go ahead and unite, and they will begin launch an invasion into this country. And now I just acted like they became a country. They didn't. They kind of like formed a local alliance to go ahead and kick these guys out. And they will actually do pretty well pushing back over here, even managing to kill the first emperor of the Kurdish Empire. But then his son's going to come into power, and his son's going to be pretty damn annoyed, as you would if your father just died, or maybe if you don't like your father, then you won't be. But he will go ahead and win decisively over here, pushing very far and wide, and he will actually manage to encircle this local tribe leader here and crush them. And then we slowly see that a lot of these Turks actually submit loyalty over to the Kurds, so they kind of, flip sides, if that makes sense. And we see that up over here, that this region is just going to go ahead and fall over, and all of these local Turkic tribes are dead. And we also see that this leader will expand down into these regions over here, which really should get their own ethnicity. And yeah, he will basically just go ahead and expand everywhere. And we can actually go ahead and look at proper borders in a second. But anyway, these are the brand new borders of this Kurdish state. The Kurdish Empire is expanding very rapid, although they kind of are a bit boxy. We also see over here a brand new ethnicity ends up popping up. I guess you can kind of call this the Syrian ethnicity, if you will. And we go ahead and see the more and more exploration will be taking place. With, a lot more land being discovered, and it also means that we can go ahead and look at some more, I guess, kind of ethnic matchups. We only see the Syrian ethnicity, but we also see over in this region this like Lebanese ethnicity. Which is obviously a sub-ethnicity, like I'm coloring it. But yeah, this, I guess, kind of Syrian ethnicity will go ahead and expand a pretty decent amount. Meanwhile, over here, we see that this is also kind of a sub-ethnicity. We see this, like, Iraqi, or I guess kind of Baghdad sub-ethnicity end up appearing over here. Or you could say Mesopotamian, I guess. That might be a better word for this community. Meanwhile, we also see that Cyprus will go ahead and be discovered, and I'm going to have some fun here. We see Cyprus is split into the 3 different ethnic groups, Italian, Greek, and Turkish, so, that's kind of funny. But who will actually be claiming the island? Well, it'll actually be Venice, as Venice goes ahead and conquers Cyprus for its own, I guess, kind of empire. There we go. This took me forever to draw, but we go ahead and see, like, 12-ish new duchies, kingdoms, whatever you want to call them at this point. I don't really care. End up forming over here. But I guess there only really being one big one, this like magenta-ish one over here. Now moving over to the creation of more countries, we're going up over to Bulgaria, where we're actually going to see some Bulgarian countries forming. Yep, there we go. We see a bunch of new Bulgarian countries form. But we also see over here that Serbia will actually go ahead and expand its borders for literally like the first time since they invaded that one country, pushing themselves very far over here. And we also see that they will go ahead and push up north, pushing their borders to look something like this. Now they're going to go ahead and see these two states down here and be like, oh, you're gone as well. And they will go ahead and fully annex them, making their borders look something like this. Now, North Macedonia kind of looks like a puppet of Albania, which is not what I want it to be, but whatever. And you know what? I have the perfect way to fix this. And the way to fix this is that we see that Macedonia is going to go ahead and join this little circle alliance here between these four dominant powers in the region. And they're going to go ahead and go over to North Macedonia and be like, hey, we all want land from North Macedonia. So, why don't we just go ahead and take it? And everyone's going to look at this and see it's a great idea. So we go ahead and see over here that the very strong Albanian army will push in, and they actually manage to just take the capital very easily. From the north, Serbian forces will push in, taking these two major cities. Then from the south, we see that the Macedonian forces will also do very well. And eventually, North Macedonia will basically just fall, and it's just going to get split between its three neighbours. And there we go. These are the new borders. We can see that North Macedonia has been split. Serbia is actually looking pretty big by now. Pretty big by now. Pretty big now. Oh, I don't know. I just can't speak at this point. It's whatever. But there we go. And a lot more countries are appearing over here. We also see that Austria expands its territory, conquering a lot of these kind of local, like Hungarian tribes, pushing their borders to look something a bit like that. We see over in Bohemia here that we actually see the creation of a brand new kind of thing. This is the Bohemian Confederation. So it's kind of like the Swiss Confederation in real life, but it's basically just a giant, like, it's kind of a country, but it's different colors because these are all the different, like, republics. I mean, the Swiss are a republic, but this is, like, different. This is a different kind of form of republic. This will be known as like Bohemian, like republicanism. Basically, it's kind of the Bohemian way of a system where each of these republics has like a kind of a say, basically. Like it's technically one country, but it's also not. Like it's in between a defensive, like a basically like a giant alliance and one political country, if that makes any sense. But yeah, we see the creation of the Bohemian Confederation up here. Also, by the way, I think I forgot to say this, but the reason the Kurds are doing so well is because of their, like, superior longbows. Not like the ones created in, like, the medieval ages, but they basically have advanced bows compared to everyone else, which has allowed them to conquer a lot more land. Speaking of conquering land, we're going to be looking at this guy again over here, the Swiss consul's son, which I gave a name to, which I need to go ahead and look up what I called him. Johann, I think it was. But anyway, Johann over here, he's going to be launching yet another invasion into a group. We see that Johann over here will go ahead and launch an invasion into this region. This is kind of the first fighting of the German tribes in a way. And they'll actually do pretty well against the Germans. They aren't actually that difficult of kind of like an enemy. We can really see that this whole region subdues over to Johann. We see that Johann does launch a campaign into this region. However, he will decisively be ambushed and defeated in this river over here, actually losing his kind of like second in command, and he will be forced to go ahead and retreat. But eventually, we see that Johann is going to go ahead and take his losses and basically go ahead and carve himself out a brand new state over here. He will go ahead and annex all of this land here, expanding the Swiss Republic quite a decent amount. But anyway, looking at this mess over here, a few wars have happened to go ahead and clean up this mess. We see that this country here, which honestly I forgot what I called it. I can look at Google Maps, or maybe even just names. Is that going to appear? No, I didn't name it actually. What did I call it? Oh, I think it was like the Tours country. But we go in and see that the Tours country will go ahead and actually wipe out quite a lot of these states. and they will go ahead and wipe out these 3 states, ending up looking something like this. We see that Aquitaine has launched an invasion into these 3 duchies over here, swallowing them whole. Meanwhile, we see that Brittany has wiped out these ones. But down here, these 2 duchies have been wiped out by Brittany. This has all happened over like 50 years, by the way, or maybe like even 100 years. But I'm not just going to drag this whole process out for multiple episodes because nobody really cares about these countries. And if you do, then care about something else in your life, please. And there we go. Almost all small states are now gone in France, other than these 2 tiny states, but they can exist. We see up in Wales that a pretty big country is going to go ahead and form. This will be known as, I guess, Wales, or maybe like Southern Wales, because we see up in the north that a rival, I guess, kind of North Wales has formed, although they do have a bit more land, like so. They end up looking something a bit like this. Meanwhile, we see that this kind of London country has also expanded itself, with the rest of this region becoming its own little country. Meanwhile, we see that the old Prince of Calais, now I guess kind of the unofficial King of Dover, he has had a pretty good time expanding. I mean, he's now dead now. He died in a campaign, but he has expanded his realm quite far, pushing them up to something like this. And over in, I guess, kind of central England, the Midlands, whatever you want to call it, we see a bunch of smaller duchies forming, and that is, I guess, what England looks like. We see over here that Croatia has expanded its border, pushing up to this new river over here, kind of subjugating, I think, some Hungarians now, actually. If we look at the ethnicity layer, actually not really that many Hungarians, just kind of expanding their border a bit. And we also see that Montenegro has even had a war of its own, doing something, wiping out this country here, annexing it. We actually see that Montenegro will be the next to join this Circle Pact. I guess kind of like the Balkan League. We've got the Balkan, I don't know, there's 5 countries and they're all Balkan. Balkan something. Balkan Alliance, Balkan, not really defensive pact, because it is kind of a military alliance, but it's not like a one attack, all blah, 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 whatever. It's not like NATO. Okay, I just changed Montenegro's color a bit. Hopefully that looks more distinguishable. And I guess there's really one place on the map that is obviously missing countries, and that is over here to somewhere I've been dreaded adding countries to because I have to add a bunch of them. And there we go. This just took me like 20 minutes of my life. It is now midnight. I want to sleep, but I really need to do this episode properly. I mean, you can probably tell that I'm tired by how energetic I am. But anyway, we see all of these countries form just a crap ton of Iberian countries. But we also see over here that it will actually be Galicia and the Leon country expanding into this region. Galicia taking over that, and Leon taking over this chunk. I guess notable countries really only Portugal, this kind of, I can't remember what I call this, Cadiz country, I think I said, or Seville, and then kind of Granada over here. Meanwhile, over in Morocco, we actually don't see any new countries forming because I'm not doing it. But we do go ahead and see that this kind of Cadiz country does go ahead and expand. Should I call it Cadiz? Or should I call it Gibraltar? Should I call it what? I don't know. Let me look at Google Maps. I think I'm going to call it the Seville country. This kind of Seville country over here will do a pretty good job at expanding its territory. So we also see over here that Valencia will continue to expand its African land. Meanwhile, up here, we see that Catalonia has locked in and has wiped out a few of these kind of smaller states up here, expanding itself pretty nicely, looking something like this. There we go. Catalonia is now growing, and the map is looking a lot more full, which I kind of like, but at the same time, it's kind of trippy. We also see that Sicily will be setting up a second colony over here. Now, I don't actually know how much help this new land is going to be, but they're going to take it anyway. And I think that that is enough in terms of adding new countries, adding new ethnicities, and all that. So we can go ahead and finish this episode off with some wars and then some power rankings, I guess, because I'm tired. And if I have a short episode for one episode, then whatever. And I'm sure this episode would actually be. Next episode, though, episode 10, when I get around to it, that's going to be premiered probably, as there's a pretty important event taking place. Also, I'd just like to point out my notes for this episode were two things. One note was add Bulgarian countries, and the second note was expand the Kurdish Empire. So, yeah, I've just been making this up. We're going to be looking at two wars for the two final events. I'm just looking at this map thinking, are there any other wars that need to happen? No, I think we're just going to look at two wars. The first war is going to be over here, based around these two states, as tensions have been rising. If we look at the ethnicity makeout, we can kind of see that these states are actually split half and half, which wasn't actually intentional. I actually had no idea what these states were going to look like. But that creates even more tension. I was just going to make up some BS, but no, we actually have a proper reason. But because this is annoying me, I'm just going to go and do that. But anyway, what is this conflict going to be? Well, this conflict is going to be based around these two states here, which I guess you can kind of call like Bosnian countries if you want to. Also, just because this is pissing me off, I'm actually just going to be spawning in a major city like right there, because otherwise that's going to annoy me. Now, looking at the alliance layer, we can see that the state that is supported by Serbia is actually supported by the whole Circle alliance. And which state will that be? Well, that will actually be the purple state over here, which will go ahead and join the Circle alliance. Meanwhile, Dalmatia will be making its own alliance. Now, this is a temporary alliance. I guess maybe you could kind of say that the yellow ones are permanent and the coloured ones are temporary. But I'm not going to remember that, so I'll just mention it. But this temporary alliance will obviously be with this blue country here. But which other countries are going to support Croatia? You actually see that both Austria and Venice will help support, I guess. We'll also see that Naples down here will also support in this war. And I guess also I'll add Sparta to this because they kind of are automatically, but, you know, whatever. And yeah, I think that is about it. But anyway, let's go ahead and look at this war. And how will this war start? Well, this war will start where we see that the Circle Alliance and Serbia will go ahead and give, word that this purple country can launch an invasion into the blue one, in which they will do pretty well. And we even see from over here that Serbia will go ahead and take this land. Meanwhile, down here, we see that Montenegrin troops will push up into Croatia, doing pretty damn well. We quickly see that Venice and Austria begin to mobilize their army, while Naples and Sparta send some, like, financial support maybe, or a few mercenaries. We see Serbia launch an invasion into this region, doing pretty well. However, we quickly see that Croatia did have an army here, and they will be pushing in and actually managing to take the capital of this purple Bosnian country, basically creating some weird mess over here. I don't really know. We quickly see that the original countries are just kind of wiped off the map here, and it is now basically just the Circle Alliance versus Croatia and their allies. We see that one of the main Croatian armies will be focused down here to protect their capital, and they actually do pretty well against Montenegro. We quickly see that Venice will begin navally bombarding this region, and also Albania to some extent, hurting them a lot. And this naval superiority will go ahead and allow Croatia to launch an invasion into Montenegro. Meanwhile, up here, Serbia will continue to do well, pushing kind of around this land, and also actually managing to win a battle here to take over this region. Meanwhile, over here, Serbia will also see success with Albanian troops arriving on this front line, doing pretty well for themselves, actually managing to retake this city. But down here, Albanian troops arriving will push back Croatia, as Croatia is fighting all of Serbia and all of Albania and all of Montenegro, with obviously Athens and Macedonia sending some supplies, but kind of not really. Over here, we see that the Croatian army is actually decisively crushed as Serbia begins a full-scale invasion into this region, and their armies will actually see great success, winning major battle after major battle. However, eventually the Austrian army will arrive and have some success up in the north. They will actually almost encircle this land. However, we quickly see that Serbia will manage to actually withdraw all their troops and even push back up here, exploiting a weakness up in this region. And we see a huge battle will actually end up taking place for this crossing, but Serbia will actually manage to win, trapping the second biggest army. Like, Croatia has like 3 main armies. This is the second biggest one down here, and this will eventually actually be almost completely squashed. Some people will evacuate via boat because, like, Vienna has a powerful navy. Not Vienna, hello. Venice has a powerful navy. However, these people in this city kind of gave up too early. Like, if they kind of led more time, if the people in the city held out longer, then the troops would have probably all been able to escape. However, they fell quite quickly, which meant that Serbia is kind of free to do, its kind of thing. And we see that Croatia is not doing well. They have severely underestimated the might of Serbia, and eventually we see that Croatia is going to have to go ahead and give in to Serbia's demand and accept a pretty humiliating peace treaty. And we can see that this peace treaty is pretty damn bad. We see that this kind of Bosnian country is created with, a lot more land than they used to have. Montenegro took a few provinces down here. Serbia took this province, which was the capital of the Blue Land. But if we look at ethnicity, we can kind of see that it does kind of make sense because, it was, and it is technically a Serbian province. So, they went ahead and took that. And we can also see that Serbia took a big piece of land here. But basically, Serbia is now quite big. Croatia is very weakened. Bosnia exists, Montenegro expanded, and we can also go ahead and see that this country officially joins the Circle Alliance, now creating actually a very big threat. Obviously, just because Bosnia joins doesn't mean it's now suddenly a threat. It's always been a threat, but now that there's no Croatia to kind of stop this threat, it's kind of getting a bit scary, We'll be going over to here to see the next war as tensions are rising around this blue country here. Now, all three of these powers, this country here, which I've got the name of, the Tours country, the Swiss Republic, and Brittany, all want this country, not the same one as in the Isle of Wight, by the way. And, well, who's going to get it? Well, that's a good question, but Tours and the Swiss Republic are about to go to war over it. We see that Tours launches an invasion of this blue country, which the Swiss Republic is like, hey, we were defending that country, so we're now going to invade you. But the Tours country was like, I'm just invading you first, noob. And they actually do quite well, pushing quite far into Swiss territory, almost actually threatening Paris itself, which is kind of like the second capital of the country. But we quickly see that the Swiss consul will go ahead and arrive. Johann is over here in Germany, kind of quelling some rebellions and stuff, so he's not here to, go ahead and fight with his father. But his father, he's decently skilled, and also he does have the Swiss army. But he's not Johann, and he will actually suffer a few major defeats over here. And eventually Johann is kind of called over there. But in the meanwhile, we see that while Johann is traveling, that they go ahead and move up to this river, like so. But over here, we do see the Swiss get a lucky break, pushing them back from Paris. And we see the Swiss go ahead and go over to Brittany and is like, hey, you want to jump in on some of this? And they will go like, hell yeah, as we quickly see Brittany launch an invasion into this land. Which is kind of seen as scummy because it's like, hey, you're kind of invading your own people here. And you're helping the Swiss, which are kind of ew. They're weird. We don't like them. This is very effective as the Tour country leaves a lot of these cities. However, they do go ahead and still hold these two major cities like so. But this will allow them to go ahead and push back the Brittany invading forces. However, Johann has arrived and he is going to do what he does best, and that is win battles. And he will do very well, like so, managing to conquer a lot of this land. Yeah, just like that. Taking over a huge chunk of this land, although down here it's actually Brittany over here. And we quickly see that this country, as soon as Johann arrives, Johann crushes the army of this country in one battle, which is pretty huge. But we also see up here that this country will actually just be invaded by the Swiss, like so. But a pretty important event is going to take place when these two armies try and coordinate a joint attack on the city. They will go ahead and attack together, with the Swiss kind of getting in there. But then we actually see that part of the army of Brittany will actually think that the city is not under their control yet, and they will actually invade the city and slaughter a bunch of Swiss troops still leaving. And one of these troops still leaving is actually the consul himself. As we see that Brittany goes ahead and kills the consul. We quickly see that Johann finds out about this, and what is he going to do? Well, he's going to go over to everyone and is like, hey, my dad just died, I'm taking power, I'm now the new consul, I don't care about your stupid democratically run elections. And everyone is like, I don't really want to mess with this guy because I don't really want to die. So yeah, Johann is now the new consul, and next episode we're going to go ahead and see a pretty big war take place in France. But I guess we can look at a temporary peace treaty for now. And there we go. We can see that the peace treaty looks something like this, with Rome even annexing the place it was trying to protect this whole time. So kind of hypocritical if you ask me. But yeah, we see that Brittany does actually keep this city for the end of the episode because, they controlled it. Which is pretty nice, as Britain is actually expanding to become a pretty big country. And, pretty decently strong, actually. But yeah, let's go ahead and look at some power rankings. Now, the number 1 and 2 countries are exactly the same. Nothing about that is going to change. These two countries are still by far the strongest, although a few countries are catching up. One country that's actually catching up quite rapidly is Sicily. They are now actually the number 3 country in the world. They overtook Florence, and that is because of their navy. You might think, oh, like Venice or Florence have the strongest navy, but it's actually Sicily with the strongest navy. Their navy have seen pretty big heights as they are now expanding their trading empire. And yeah, their navy is now the strongest in the world, probably, if I had to guess. Number 4 is going to go ahead and be Florence. Florence still has the elite cavalry, which Sicily kind of now has, which has also boosted them, which has made them quite strong. But the number 5 country is actually going to be the Kurdish horde over here. Not horde, Kurdish empire. I can't draw a 5. How do you draw a 5? There we go. Like so. And number 6 is actually probably going to be quite surprising. It's actually going to be Serbia. Serbia's military is super strong. For how small they are, so they're up there. Number 7 will go over to Valencia. Number 8 will go over to Austria. Oh, guys, I forgot Venice in the rankings. Hold on. Okay, scrap that. We see that number 6 will go over to Venice, with number 7 going over to Serbia, number 8 going over to Valencia, number 9, number 9 going over to Austria, and finishing off top 10 will actually be Brittany. It's normally maybe Aquitaine or something, but yeah, I think that is the rankings. Athens obviously could be up there, Aquitaine could be up there, Galicia maybe, I don't know, Izmir maybe, but these are the top 10 power rankings. And we can see that Serbia's trooping up there. You gotta watch out. And also the power of Italy is kind of shifting south, as the strongest Italian state is now Sicily, which is a pretty big event. But yeah, next episode, I think I'll premiere episode 10. Although I don't know if I will. I don't know. Either it's going to be episode 10 or episode 15 when I premiere. Or maybe I'll premiere both, actually. You know what? I think I'll premiere both episode 10 and episode 15. But which event is going to be taking place when is the question. Because I have 2 big events I want. Okay, I made up my mind. I'm premiering both episode 10 and episode 15. Both will have separate kind of major-ish events. So make sure to check out for that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope it wasn't too kind of like sad in a way, hearing my depressed voice because I'm tired. And I, hope everything about this video was okay. And I'll see you in the next one. And I'm going to go to sleep because I'm absolutely blimmin' shattered.